Carlin.
Hi, I'm Wayne.
We are going to talk today about our online compliance utility module, or OCU. Basically what OCU is it takes a look at your contractual requirements and helps you to track your late calls as well as adjudicate those based on your contractual requirements. We've got Wayne with us today. He is our solutions specialist specific to OCU. And anything else you want me to say, Wayne?
Nope, let's get rolling.
Let's do it.
So here we are, everybody. This is our online compliance utility module. We have two people in our organization that mainly deal with the OCU module, what we refer to as the OCU module. Yvonne Stringer, who's the guru of OCU, who's been doing this for a very long time, and then myself, who just joined us here in 2018. So we've got a little bit under our belt going through this process.
And Wayne, I think you were a user of OCU before you came to First Watch, right?
I was a user of OCU. I actually spent 33 years in the city of San Diego working in their system, and we were one of the early users of the online compliance utility with the city of San Diego. So what is this online compliance utility module? Well, what it is it takes the EMS provider's contract, their contract with their authority, whether it's the county, the state, a city, a fire department, a third service, and we take that EMS contract and we actually put it into this utility to adjudicate calls. So what it really is, it's a complex series of algorithms that when a call comes in, it then comes into First Watch, and then we stick it into what we call triggers. And these triggers actually spit out the information necessary to go through this utility in order to make your adjudication process happen. At the end of the day, what it ends up doing basically is measuring your response time compliance and your performance against your system. For example, in this dial display here, they give you the total number of calls by zone, by whether it was emergent or non-emergent for this particular customer. It tells you how many standard exceptions that you may have incurred. If you have a max exception, if you have something that goes double the response time standard, for example, we can also call that out so that you can see those on an individual basis as well. From that standpoint, the best part about it is it's near real time. And we say near real time because basically calls come into your CAD system on a live basis. We normally get information on a replicated basis. So as that replication occurs or there's other things in your system that require some processing rules or configuration changes, those things need to be taken into account when your data comes into our system. So sometimes we put a delay on the system to make that happen. So basically the online compliance utility, it allows for adjudication of your late responses. So both entities, both the authority side and the provider side, get to go through the calls, and the provider will ask for this call maybe to be exempt or to be considered not late through a time correction or something. And it allows the authority to go ahead and say, yeah, I agree, or no, I don't agree, and this is the reason why. And you could have that dialogue via this program back and forth in writing, so everything's captured and everything's accounted for from that standpoint. It tracks reasons for late responses. This is kind of one of the big benefits of it. There are two different parts of the components of the OCU. One that's visible to the provider only, and the ones that is visible to the provider and the authority both, which is the overall workings of the OCU. However, we do truncate out late responses, specifically in a report for the provider, so they can track and trend their late responses and why they're being late, so that possibly they could make some corrections in the future as they look through their data. Some of those things like offload delays that are causing issues, bad weather, heavy traffic, not necessarily due to the incident, or a wrong location that continually happens to occur in an area of town where you might have a problematic spot. One of the other benefits of the OCU, and what I think has drawn a lot of people to this, has been the third-party objective review. So you have the two entities, the authority and the provider side, but First Watch is actually that third party who basically locks and loads their calls as they occur. And then that prevents people from going in and actually making changes without actually having somebody to say, yes, you can make that change, or no, you can't make that change. This gives a very objective review of the process, which lends to no subjectivity within the data itself. Allows for transparency. I can tell you from experience that this is a big deal with people who do oversight to systems, such as cities or counties or departments that actually want to be able to know that they can actually see what's going on. They can actually then justify if there's ever a question on a particular response or transport what actually occurred. And further benefits of it is it gives the provider and authority access to various reporting data elements. And as we go through this process, you'll begin to see that as well. It allows for a graphic display of certain data elements at a glance, so you don't have to go to different systems, the different disparate systems, in order to bring in that information. So we kind of all try to put it into one location for you to view. Again, it's near real-time monitoring. And why is that important? It's because if you are having issues within your system, you can actually see that readily available. You don't have to wait till the end of the month in order to find out, oh, in the first 5 days of the month, we had some bad issues which caused our whole month to be out of whack. You could actually see that on the front end as it's occurring, and then you can make those adjustments, maybe call in some extra crews, or maybe look at if you're having hospital offload issues, you may be able to talk to the hospital about those issues as well. So it helps you alleviate those late responses that you maybe get as a result of those things. Some of the more benefits, obviously, it's customizable based on the data that you provide. So some of our systems, they like to track the active units. For example, if you have an incident and you send a unit out on that incident, you want to know also how many other units were on calls at that same time. So it may give you, during the adjudication process, some justification as to why you had to send a unit that was much further away, maybe because your system was overloaded or busy, and that's where that active unit component kind of comes into play. What else can we do? Obviously, I talked a little bit earlier about the suite of reports that we have, and there's a number of reports that come standard with the OCU, which include the calls in progress, some incident details, which gives you every incident and all the details on those incidents that are all filterable, and they're also able to upload into another report format for you to be able to present down the road. It gives you a list of exemption reasons for the month. So if you went through and you found a number of exemptions in a certain category that seemed to be a little heavy, you can go and investigate those from a third-party review. The late reasons report, as I discussed, is a provider-only report that shows the number of late reasons and calculated as to why these things had occurred. And you're able to go ahead and go in and make those adjustments down the road as you see more and more of these late reasons in the same category pop up. You have a response and transport summary. That response and transport summary is actually a really good report for reporting out on the number of responses and transports that are broken down by the different levels of service. or the different zones and areas, and it tells you in those specific zones and areas the percentage of those responses and how many calls were canceled, how many calls were transported, and what the 90th percentile to those calls were, which is a very key component in a lot of state reporting these days. Obviously, your compliance and penalty report that are combined in order for you to see your monthly compliance. And as you adjudicate calls, these reports all get updated at the same time. So it's all kind of near real-time updating as you're going through, so you'll be able to see calls and things as they occur. Also, a mutual aid report, units coming in, you going out to other places. And then we have an overall reconciliation report that brings in all the information from your CAD system, everything that we put in the system, and then how many of those calls are actually contractual and how many are not contractual. So you can kind of reconcile against your CAD system for those calls. You have your suite of reports. Like I said, the compliance and penalty, we kind of just went over all these, the late reasons, the exemptions, the graphic display of calls in progress, and incident details and reconciliation. So here's an example of a reconciliation report where you have the OCU primary trigger, which pulls in all your incidents, and you can see in this one, the contract in OCU. Those are the ones that are actually contractually obligated based on your contract needs. And you want to look for duplicates to make sure you don't have any duplicates in your OCU, so you're not counting calls twice and making the data messed up. If you had any ones that were do not count, for whatever reason, they shouldn't have counted, that'll show up there. Your mutual aid out of service area calls, any non-contract in OCU calls. These are ones that are in your OCU that allow you to bring calls back to life that maybe they're not specifically contractual calls, but at some point somebody may say, hey, this should have been a contractual call. And we make this queue so that you can go in and bring that call back to life and put it in your contract bucket. If there are some that came in after that, these other ones to the right there of non-contract zone, no unit assigned, excluded priority problems. These are all the reasons why these calls did not go in your OCU. And if you had a question about a certain call, you can actually click on any one of these numbers that you have in here, and it'll actually bring up those instances on a per line basis to show you the details of that call. The compliance and penalty report, this is an example of one that we do for a customer that actually has their zones. They do a combined zone or a combined penalty structure. So they have a code 2 and code 3 in all 5 zones that are combined. And they have their incidents, the on-time compliance and their total incidents, their late incidents, how many were adjudicated, how many were exempted. It gives you how many time corrections were approved, and then the compliance calculated incidents, the number of late calls, and gives you your percentage based on that. And if you had any liquidated damages as a result of that, based on some other criteria, as you can see on the bottom section, if you had an extended response time or you had some calls that fell within your contractual language that caused the penalty, then that assesses the penalty, and then it's just right there for you at a glance, so you can see how you're doing during the month. So what does it really look like? And that's kind of the fun part, right? So here it is, you open it up, and voila, you've got yourself a what we call queues on the left, and these are where the buckets where all your calls go into. If you had compliant calls from the get-go, it goes into a compliant queue, and it just sits there and there's nothing for you to do. But if one comes into your late review queue, you're able to go in and click on that call and subsequently get yourself an adjudication page that pops up. And in that adjudication page is where you do all the work. Basically, it gives you the unit number that's being adjudicated against, and then you have your drill down here to the right, which is actually scrollable that you can look at your incident from the CAD to see if there's anything in there that might exempt it, or things that may have occurred on the call that may have actually contributed to this unit's late response. You'd go in and put in your name, the owner name. It's a drop-down list. You would status the call to if you need to do a correction or an exemption. If you did an exemption, you'd go ahead and put an exemption reason. If you had other reasons, no it seems, or some other things that caused it, you could have a drop down for that as well. And then again, the late reasons that you have, there's two different late reason components or boxes there for you to enter late reasons. On this end, in this box down here, you can actually do your response time compliance. This initial side never changes. And the final side is where you can make adjustments and make corrections if needed to the times, or you can make corrections to the response time standard, or you can change the zone or the area, or you can change the priority based on how you want to adjudicate it. And then you could put a comment over here to the right that allows you to make comments on the call. You can also put an attachment on the call so you can see what's going on from that perspective. So there's a number of things that you can do within this adjudication box. Once you hit save and close, it automatically sends you to this late submitted for approval queue, and that queue gets opened up by the authority side, and they're able to say yes or no, basically time correction approved or time correction denied. If it gets denied, it comes back to you for one appeal. You can appeal that denial. Otherwise, you would just click that you accept the denial and you just move on. So that's, and you can also, if you open up one of these calls and you said, yeah, I'm late, you could actually just click on it and it'll go directly to the late completed bucket and it'll just be counted as being late. So we don't have any questions because we're doing a presentation and there's nobody other than this wonderful recording to do this with.
So thank you, Wayne. I love the concept of the transparency that OCU gives, and the idea that First Watch is, you know, a third party involved in this, and it makes it so much cleaner and easier for agencies and authorities when they are working through these calls. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, everybody, we hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Bye.